Oh, I've been trying to get away out of this house for the last 2 to 3 years. I said, well, how do we go on? Freeze to bloody death in here or what? Nearly ready, Pet.
They've just let the houses go to rack and ruin, and they've boarded some of them up.
On Monday, we were still in here, more or less, still freezing. Nothing had been said or anything. On Tuesday, nothing happened again, but they must have seen in the Burnley Express what you people were showing. Wednesday I went out, did my shopping, come back, and we had an house on Wednesday. I said, and today I'm moving into the new house. So I think you people have done a hell of a lot about it. They must get panicking or something.
The Bleak House and Plane-Tree Estate was completed by the Burnley Council in 1938. Situated in a prime position, it is close enough to Burnley's town and industrial areas, yet is next to schools, the countryside and the Pennine Moors. Until a few years ago, the estate remained a flourishing community, and the relationship between the tenants, the Labour Council and Housing Authority was excellent. Now everything has changed. It has become a ghetto. Houses and amenities have fallen into disrepair. Even though Burnley has a long housing waiting list, houses are empty and all boarded up. Tenants live in fear. Many have already left, but a few still remain.
My name is Jean Powell. This is my husband Mick. We've lived in this house for 2 years and we've lived on the estate for 18. Our house is ruined with damp, and it's through us not putting enough heating in ourselves and through condensation.
Well, the council say this is all condensation, but myself I think it's black damp. They say to you keep your windows open when you're cooking and washing and have you, which we do, even in winter time. My wife keeps the back door open when she's doing all the washing, and she has plenty of washing to do, like. She does washing 3 or 4 times a week. It's only last August since wallpapered in here. It's just all like this upstairs. It's even going to the living room now, and it's heated in there all during the day.
The other week when it were really cold, we were all just sat here huddled up with blankets, and they were crying when it were bedtime. But I felt cruel having to put them to bed. Well, keep still, Vicky. Well, we've to have eyes on from between 6 and 7 at morning right up till 12 at night when we go to bed. It's nearly £21 a week, and I don't think it's worth it to live in conditions like we are. This is how I have to put my baby to bed every night. More or less fully clothed and with a bonnet on because it's too cold, and they wake up during the night. And then I have 4 children who are also wet bed as a problem, and they get up freezing cold during night. And you just don't know what to do with them at best to keep them warm. Like I said, you have to put them to bed fully dressed. I've had my doctors up, my old visitor. My doctor said it was like Siberia. And my old visitor said men in prison are better off than what we are. Our beds are damp, we're being against walls. And there's nowhere else where I can put baby Scots, 8-way drafts, all the damp. There's nowhere at all where I can put it. I just could cry having to bring them up here in winter. It's just like a dungeon. That's how I describe it. It's like a dungeon.
There's never been any holdback on repairs on this estate. All the orders are put through as and when required. Now, I don't control the workforce and I can't answer for that. I won't answer it. But we certainly do our best to get repairs done. It's in our interest as management to get them done.
And I've asked them to come and do repairs. They said it's on the list, you have to wait, we were ordering. It's 6 or 7 months. And that, you know, and I've got a job from 1983 and it still hasn't been done yet. And they said they did the slates and they thought, water's just coming through the walls. And they've done the job, and as far as they're concerned, the job's done. And they won't do no more.
A man came round, a plumber, and he said, oh, I'll just have a look at your gutter. So I said, right. So he had a look at it, he said, right. He said, I'll come back after dinner. He said, I'm just going for the ladders. It took him 18 months to come back and put me a new gutter on.
People have been left waiting far too long for simple repairs. That people in this area haven't been taken seriously. There's been a reluctance on the part of certain members of the Direct Works Department to do repairs in this area.
There was one instance where a lady who had a young baby was blamed because the breathing of the baby was supposed to be causing condensation, which led to very bad damp and mould in her house.
The baby.
The baby, yeah. It's absolutely unbelievable. What an excuse for having a mouldy wall, you know, your baby's breathing.
I believe that they simply don't care how people are. They're not living, they're just existing. And how they're existing under these conditions, it's a miracle. I think they have a dam sheet to accept rent for a property that's in such a terrible state.
Never do any repairs?
No.
Because I keep telling them about that several times, and you say, oh, we'll send somebody up, but they never do that.
I said there's nothing we can do about the windows, because if we put new ones in, they'll only be broken again. I complained about the gas meter. They said, we can't provide a new meter, you'll have to provide your own. You have to do cooking on the fire, because we simply have no gas.
Many places will stay dry with bright periods. Western areas have become...
Of course it's damp. You want to see his bedroom, it's soaking wet.
One more time.
And I'm worried about the water dripping onto the electric wires.
Do you like living like this?
No, we don't. Good Lord, it doesn't make sense. What a silly question to ask. Do you like living like this? Might as well be.
It's all right people going around and talking about what they're suffering, but if they don't go to the right place and tell the right people, we can't do anything. As regards his windows, you know and I know it's the tenant's responsibility. Now, if tenants don't have the resources to do that and put windows back in, obviously one feels very sorry.
They're currently £500,000 underspent on housing repairs, and every year since I can remember, the council has been underspent on its housing repairs fund. It's absolutely ridiculous. They just don't spend at all, and they just blame it on the government. It's not the government's fault. Housing repairs comes out of revenue, it doesn't come out of capital.
There's not been $500,000 underspent. You know, this is, again, a misunderstanding of the situation. The amount that the Housing Committee had provided was not spent up, but it's not been underspent, it's there. The work is still to be done, the work has been ordered, and the work will be done.
For the last 4 years, I've been living in this flat, right? And now, I've got no bath, and I've had no bath now for the past 7 months or 8 months, near enough. And now, it's 3 weeks now since I've had any water. And I have to go and carry water from house to house. This is where the bathroom and toilet used to be like. It were all rotten and soft, the tiles and that was picking up. So the corporation just come up and had a look at it and they said, well, you'll have to close it off. Well, that's a bit out of the question, like, you know. I haven't been into the store maybe twice a week, because they only come maybe once a fortnight, or maybe once a week, and maybe sometimes they don't come for 3 weeks. So I have to empty it out then pretty often myself. The sewers are all blocked the whole way right down along. Corporation, they're just not bothering. They think we're just scrum up here, just like rats, live from day to day and things like that. This is what the council thinks.
Nobody knows, only us what live in it. The council don't bother. They could send wagons up to clear it all away. When the children are playing out, you have to watch them all the time. In the past, you could put all the toys out and leave them for day. We've even had parties in his back gardens. Once of a day, if a tenant came out of any property at all, the wagon came up and made sure that there was nothing left. But they don't bother now. They just don't care. It's degraded, and it smells and all terrible, especially in hot weather.
If you look round these houses and look closely at them, look at those window frames. Those have all been replaced in the not too distant past. This estate was painted a couple of years ago. All the one-bedroom accommodation have been improved up to modern standards. The houses have been rewired. We've had sitting out areas constructed. If you look at the damage and the vandalism, that's not the council.
Well, there's a sewage pipe under my bedroom and there's rats coming through it. And they said it's not their job, it's the water board. And the water board said it's not their job, it's the council. So which do you turn to? Who else can I turn to? Nobody, they won't do no.
The only time they bother to do any cleaning at all is when somebody actually goes out to visit the estate. When he and Gal visited last year, they were up there in droves cleaning the official route. They didn't clean the unofficial route, but they cleaned the official route where they thought he'd actually be going.
This here is all crawling. There's been rats found dead inside here and everything, right? And over here, this is another house. And that, go with her. Right, I'll show you. And look in there now. This house particularly had a gas explosion where there's danger to kids. And they weren't bothered, they didn't come and ask us to move or anything. You know, the roof's blown in and everything with the gas pipe. The gas was still on, the electric is still on, and yet they still haven't come up and to turn anything off at all. And it's full of rats and rubbish, and it's disgusting.
Well, we try to clear them, but again you get people who break in, as you've said, use them for all sorts of purposes and try to live in them, and it's really...
So you're saying that people are breaking into these houses, putting all their rubbish into it, and then boarding them back up again?
No, I'm saying that we have to board them back up and try to keep them clear and, as you say, stop them becoming a health.
But you go into almost any of these houses and they're full of rubbish, even the boarded up ones.
Yeah.
I mean, which must be a health hazard, which you must be responsible for.
Well, if it's full of rubbish, it's because it's been taken back in after we've cleared it.
Well, I wouldn't like to go in there and find any in there for you. But there is quite a lot of rats. We did ask for Roy Murphy to come from shelter, which he did last year, and he came again, you know, to see us, and he said, well, it's about time the council got took to court.
Well, it's very clear with all this muck and grime around that it's a health hazard. And, I mean, if you look at that one there, I mean, that's got to be a health hazard, and that's unlawful. All those are disease carriers. Yeah. And ultimately, the council are responsible, and it's their duty in law to actually do something about it and get it moved.
I've seen many things in the 15 years I've worked with this organisation, but this one certainly takes some beating. The estate's in an appalling condition. I mean, I've seen flats and maisonettes in this condition, but these are nice houses, well built in the 1930s when we built the best council houses. And it's staggering that any council can actually allow people to live in conditions that are beyond belief. I mean, we criticised Rackman quite properly over the years, but it would seem to me that in this city, the Rackman of the world is the council. I've walked round the estate, and I would say that every single property I've seen, if the tenant were to take the council to court, they'd be successful without any doubt at all. I'd stake my reputation on that.
I don't think that many members of the council, or if any, could be described as sort of malicious or intentionally trying to run down any particular estate, though it does disturb me that some people within the housing department seem quite happy to create a ghetto-type situation.
Is there much illness on the estate?
Yes, too much.
Well, I mean, that clearly leads me to believe that not only could you do what I was saying before, take action under the Housing Act, but you could actually take an action under the Public Health Act 1936, Section 99, for the council allowing you to live in a situation which is injurious to health. And that, in fact, is a criminal prosecution in the magistrates' court. When you see the solicitor, remember, suggest to him the possibility of an action under the Public Health Act 1936. That's a powerful piece of legislation. It means a criminal prosecution in the magistrates' court. It means your landlord is a criminal.
On the hill far away, to the old rugged road. You never see the council. What are you on about? You never see the council. This housing authority, whatever it is, council, you know, the housing officials, they're like bloody poltergeists. You know they're there, but you never see them. I mean, I wouldn't know a council official if I fell over him.
The council wasting money, like I just said previous, about coming to do the garden steps and the handrails, and we don't have one. That's a waste of money.
I don't think they can run a raffle, never mind a council. It's gone worse and worse.
When you get up in the morning, you see that a lot. It makes you
feel like getting back in bed again when you look out the bedroom window and say there's a lot, you know.
They've let all these houses go. There's a waiting list a mile long. Why didn't they put tenants in? instead of losing all this money. But it's terrible when you get a bit of hot weather, a bit of sunshine like last year, and the privets is all overgrown, we're out with chairs and cutting them. Why can't the council come up and cut them and try and make there's enough men and young men doing community work? Surely to God they can send somebody up here and tidy it up. We do our best.
The housing policy is a shambles. Just recently in the council they admitted they never had a policy. They certainly haven't got one at the moment, and when we pressed them in the council for a future policy, the chairman of housing said he didn't have a glass ball, and that was his answer. The Labour Party in Burnley have been in control for many, many years, and I believe have become very complacent. They have spent £150,000 on renovating the front of the town hall and flowers for the town clerk, and they spent this £50,000 on the lift, and now they're planning to spend £2.25 million on renovating the building next to the town hall, which will become an art centre, and as some have said, will be the venue for the new Bears Ball.
During the past year, it was noted that the council wanted to get Bleak House off their hands. The tenants did not know what was happening, whether they were being evicted or not. There was a lot of rumours. 112 houses was to be sold for £1,500 each. The top half of the estate was being given to Wimpeys in return for adjacent houses being remodernised. But most of the discussions went on behind closed doors. I don't think it's fair what they're doing. I mean, why not come out in the open and let us know and put us mind at ease? And that'll be a big thing. It'll be a tonic to all of us. Because like I said in the past, Paul, the people didn't want to go, and they still don't want to go.
The thing is a shambles. They started off with the idea, I believe, 12 months ago. They've done nothing about it, only put it off and put it off. I think the major problem is a major split in the Labour Party in Burnley, where the Labour councillors aren't in agreement with the Labour Party, and between them they've made a complete botch of it.
Burnley isn't isolated. This is, if you like, a microcosm of what's happening throughout this country. You could go to any council estate, any private estate, I think, and you'll see this sort of thing. There's a lack of investment in public housing and private housing, and this is the situation that we're in. These houses...
So what are you doing?
What we're doing about them is trying to ease our own particular problems in the only way we can. The only way that the finances are sort of available. That's through the private sector.
They decided in May that something was to be done about the estate.
Does that also mean it wasn't discussed at the council?
It wasn't discussed by the council at all, no. Just by senior officers and members of the council, i.e. Committee chairman, this kind of thing.
The council, after a great deal of heart searching, have decided the only way to go is to sell some of the houses up here to a private firm, and the 112 houses are those that surround us at the moment. Unfortunately, this will mean that a number of tenants who are still remaining here will need to move.
We don't want to move. We like it here, and we've been here 45 years. And I don't see why Wimpy should have them for 1,500 after we've spent all this money. I've brewed up. So, and we like the view and the outlook. And my husband's spent a lot on it and done a lot of work on this house.
I mean, as roots are up here, and we've done a lot for the community centre to stop vandalism in the past. I mean, we haven't sat back and let it go on.
They are giving away, and I use that term, giving away 112 properties on Bleak House Estate to Wimpys in return for Wimpys doing up properties on another estate. They've just finalised, or they've decided that Wimpys will be doing up 50 houses at a cost of £750,000.
The slate lids on these houses will cost as much as what the house itself had cost to build, because you won't get slates now. But on the real thing is Wimpy's up here, £1,500 house, and what they're going to offer us for this? We have to leave this, be uprooted, and what they're going to offer us? They won't offer me apple and orange in a bloody lucky bag.
Why wasn't it put out to public tender?
In a way, it was. We brought in 3 of the most experienced firms in the country, and we invited them to submit schemes. They did, and as I say, the one that we consider to be the most appropriate is the one that was accepted finally.
Oldham had a similar problem with an estate, and it put it out to public tender in full consultation with the tenants, and it got over 80 offers. They got a far better deal for their tenants. No tenant who did not want to leave the estate had to leave that estate.
Final decisions haven't been taken yet, but as you know from our discussion, Wimpers are going to carry out improvements in kind rather than cash payments. Because once again, if you go into this question of receiving cash for these houses, we'll be penalised. We'd only be able to spend a fifth of what we get on our own property. So therefore, quite rightly in my opinion, we've done a deal with the contractors who are going to improve some of the other houses that we're not selling to them. We want to try to encourage and stimulate that investment and make this area the decent sort of area it could be. And so again, we're depriving other areas to help to support this one. But it's the best deal that we could get, the best deal for everybody.
Many of the remaining tenants don't think that it is a good deal for them. They asked to see Jessie Bradshaw, the chairman of the Housing Committee.
So in that programme, we've got £730,000 to do improvements to other properties.
Well, why couldn't you have done them up instead of trying to move us out? Well, I'll tell you something. We're not moving. We're buying ours, and you can't stop us either.
Well, yeah, if you put...
I told you this on the phone.
We're buying.
You did, Mr. Gregory.
Yes, and we've applied to buy it. And I don't see any reason why we can't buy ours. And we don't want a mortgage. We're paying cash for ours, so you don't need to say you'll refuse us a mortgage.
Well, we can't refuse the mortgage.
No, and you can't refuse to buy it.
So we're buying.
No, well, we're buying.
We can't refuse the right to buy.
No, well, all
I mean,
right,
I think, as I said to Mr. Gregory,
as
I said to Mr. Gregory, when I went, oh, yeah, that's fair comment.
Why should we move for your convenience when you haven't spent anything on houses? We've spent a load of money on our house,
true, yeah.
and we've built
10
a
years.
drive where they've offered us. There's nowhere to put a drive, there's nowhere to have a garage, and if you think we're having a car outside that we've paid thousands of pounds for, you've got another thing coming.
10 years ago, when we saw the estate deteriorate,
11 years
we put in for a move. And in that 10 years, we've just had one, which was previously
Cliviger, and it was a terrace house, and it was too big.
And since then, we haven't been acknowledged or anything.
No, well, and
that's 10 years ago.
I wrote to Mr. Norris for an appointment, and I got an appointment, but who did I see? I just saw the woman that was over the housing visitors, and do you know what she told me? In nowhere will you get a transfer from up there unless somebody exchanges you. That's where I got told. And they came to view me house, she said, and I don't know why you want to move for. She said, you've got a lovely home. I said, I know I have. I said, but we've spent money on it, so why should we, at our time of life, have to give that home up that we've spent all this money on just to suit you and your incompetence?
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you this much, you can't run a damn raffle, never mind a council, if that's how you're sorting it out.
Well, whether he has the right to buy or not is a thing that will have to be determined, because at the moment, of course, the council are already taking action to complete this contract and arrangement with Wimpers.
The law says you have a right to buy. You've had a right to buy since 1980. That right only exists because the council is your landlord. The council is still your landlord. You've still got the right to buy.
I have a note here from Mr. Ian Gow, which tells me there that I have the right to buy.
Well, the minister's obviously got it right.
So if he's saying that, he's not telling lies, is he?
He's certainly not, and I must admit he's a very powerful ally for you to have. Right, now what I'd do, you've got that letter from the minister.
Yeah.
I'd send a letter to the minister, Mr. Gow, explain that you've now filled the form in, explain equally that you've got a feeling that they don't want you to buy. Send that letter to the minister, and send a copy of that letter to the chief executive here.
Mr. Whittle.
So they know that Mr. Gow is still your ally. Right? And I'd also send them a copy of that letter so that they're very firmly convinced and got it right in their heads that you want to buy and that no less a person than the minister said that you can buy.
I have the right to stay here as long as I want, even if Wimpers do them up. I still have the right to come back in it if I didn't buy it. Every time we ask the council anything, you can't get to know anything. Over the last 2 or 3 years while this has been going on.
They've misled the people over the last couple of years, and they have now issued this document requiring them to give up possession of their homes. It says that the act on which they're doing it is the 1980 Housing Act, and it says that the landlord intends within a reasonable time to either demolish or reconstruct the building or to carry out work on the building. Now, the landlord has no intention whatsoever of doing any work on the building. He intends, i.e. the council intends, to sell it. And the people that have received these documents are really worried because they think that this means they have to leave their homes. And they don't. Just not true.
This is symptomatic of the way in which many members of the housing department view tenants, that they feel that they don't have the right to have information, they don't have the right to make decisions, and that the council can send out whatever kind of documents they want, however inaccurate and how unintelligible they are.
It would appear that there's been a deliberate policy on the part of the council to run these down to such an extent that you now think the only thing you can do is sell them for £1,500. I mean, seems to me that there's been incredibly bad management of the estate.
No, I think there's some blame that one could be placed on ourselves, and after in foresight this could always be a case. It's not been a deliberate policy because they are assets.
What about the repairs? I mean, clearly they have not been done. I mean, time after time today I've heard tenants say to me, I've asked for the repairs to be carried out, window frames, doors, dampness throughout, and nothing has happened. And they're now in an appalling situation, an appalling condition.
I think that, as far as I'm concerned, the repairs that's been needed to the property has been carried out. We do, in fact, are equal, I think it's £287 per dwelling, which is equal to the national average. In fact, it's all the national average. And repairs that needed to be carried out has been carried out.
But with respect, I mean, you can say that. And other chairmen of housing have said similar things to me, and then you walk into the dwelling, and what do you see? You see the council-owned slum. And there can be no argument that those properties outside this hall are slums. And they are neglected, and they're in a state of disrepair that is unbelievable. Now, there has to be an explanation for that. And it can only, in my view, be put down to bad management on the part of the council. I mean, there has to be an explanation. It didn't happen by accident, council.
Well, that's fair enough.
I mean, they are of the most substantial kind of council house. They were built pre-war,
Yes,
of good brick.
Good brick, yeah.
That's why you've been able to sell them to Wimpeys, of course.
But
They'll jump at that.
It hasn't been an easy decision to sell, because our policy would not be able to sell these properties. There's no two ways about that. I don't accept all the blame. I've said earlier in the discussions that I've had with the tenants that I can improve houses, but I can't improve people. And I think that an estate is made by people who will not keep the responsibility and the social aspect to their neighbours.
But it sickens me when I keep hearing this. The blame is always put on the poor old council tenant, when in fact the blame more properly resides in the council. You're not the first chairman, and you won't be the last one to say to me, you know as well as I do, that are bad tenants, so I accept that. But ultimately, the disrepair in those houses is not something which is due to the tenants. The tenants pay the rent. Out of that rent, you should carry out the repairs. Clearly, you haven't carried out the repairs.
Well, that's a matter of opinion, obviously, and...
It's not my opinion, the opinion of the tenants.
I suppose that you'll go to other authorities and say the same in defence, and I think there is some defence to be added. But then, having said that, the tenants and ourselves are left to deal with this problem.
I think they're treating us really shabbily up here this last few years. Don't you?
Yeah. It absolutely stinks, does this council? I think so anyway, don't you?
Yes, I do. Six years ago, there was one councillor told them it's time they spent some money on this estate. And if they had have done then, the estate would have been in a reasonable condition, which it is not now. Since then, it's gone down and down.